This afternoon, we're talking to Mayor of Saratoga Springs, Mayor Ron Kim, who is running for re-election. You are running in this primary against fellow Democrat Chris Mattison for Tuesday's primary election. I want to start with some of the things that you are proud of, the accomplishments that you feel like in the city that you want to let voters know about, why they should re-elect you.
So we have three ongoing affordable housing projects. We have one near the Saratoga Casino that is just moving through the various development boards for approval. The city council approved it. It is going to be workforce housing. In addition, we also have a Allen Street project on the west side that is under construction. Governor Hochul in, I think, February, provided $50 million to support that effort, and that's going to be a huge impact on our affordability. And then we also are working with the state government and a private developer to do a project right in the center of downtown, which would be great because we have so many people that need to work in downtown. If they could also live there, that would be a real positive impact on our downtown. So affordable housing, we also are doing a Complete Streets program. The head of the Complete Streets Committee came into me early on in my administration and said, you know, Mayor, we've had this plan on the books for several years. It's a state law to make sure we do bike trails and pedestrian walkways, but we're not really getting headway. We've made some headway. We have a downtown connector. We are, with NYRA, we've been working with them to expand a bike trail right in front of the track. We also just received notice of a grant from Congressman Tonko to construct one on Crescent Avenue that will be a bike trail coming out of the state park, which will join the system that the park has. So I'm really proud of those things. But the biggest probably step we've taken is after 6 years, we have now a 24/7, 365 homeless shelter. For the last 6 to 8 years, we've had one in the middle of a public garage. If you go to Woodlawn Garage today, it is empty. There would be up to 30 people there some nights, basically living there during the summer months. We moved that forward with the help of local benefactors, Sonny and Julie Bonaccio, and a nonprofit Rise here. And that is, to me, the most important accomplishment in just the 18 months I've been in office.
I'm glad you brought up that homeless shelter. We had just reported, I think, a week or so ago that that shelter that was set up, it was already at capacity, which I think shows the need for a resource like that in the city. What are your thoughts, or what are your plans if you were to get reelected, for coming up with a more permanent solution? I know that there's been tensions with some parents also in the city and trying to set up a shelter location. They were worried because it was a little too close to the school that their kids went to. So I want to hear your thoughts moving forward for the next few years.
Well, we impaneled a task force on homelessness as soon as the original plan fell through to use the former senior center for a homeless center on William Street. They've been working diligently for the last few months, and they're looking at different real estate. They're going to make some recommendations in July to the city council. We believe that through this process, we'll be able to locate a site for a permanent shelter. It probably won't be an existing building. As far as I can tell, most of the candidates for real estate consideration are not right now, don't have buildings on them. They're vacant lots. But we do think that we can move forward on this. I think one of the positive impacts of just having this temporary shelter is I think the communities recognized how we do need it. We don't need to just settle for the idea of people living in our public garage. And so I do think there'll be support for us to move forward on this. It's going to always be difficult. Neighborhoods certainly want to have a say, but we have a good process in place now to figure this out, and I do believe we'll be able to do it. And by the fall, we'll probably have some kind of direction for a permanent shelter. This shelter is only basically for 2 years, so we do have some time, but we're going to press forward with this.
Okay, thank you for that answer. I want to bring up the city council meetings. Obviously, that has been in the news because there have been disruptions in the city council meeting from activists from Black Lives Matters who they feel like they haven't really been listened to, and that has been their only outlet. Your opponent has been critical of your handling of that situation because of how abruptly the meetings would end. I want to get your response. Would you do anything differently? And how are you making sure as mayor that the people who spoke out at the city council meetings, how are you making sure that they feel like they're being heard?
Well, first, we should keep this in perspective. We've had, since I took office, I think 85 city council meetings, both agenda meetings and public meetings, special council meetings. And we had 2 that were disrupted. We were able to reconvene within 72 hours to do our business. The city didn't basically miss any sort of major issues through that disruption. So keeping it in perspective, yes, we've had that. Sometimes democracy is difficult. Sometimes protecting everyone's right to free speech does run into these conflicts. I have not heard a suggestion from my opponent as to how he would handle it differently that wouldn't get the city in further legal trouble. Because bear in mind, right now, the Attorney General of New York State is investigating us for a prior administration who limited the ability of people to speak out at city council meetings. And unfortunately, they've extended that investigation after the current Commissioner of Public Safety took action against 2 of the BLM activists. So my philosophy has always been, let's have everyone speak who wants to speak, give them that opportunity. Telling people, taking people out of the meetings, removing them is really very counterproductive, because here's right now we have a legal bill of about $65,000 and counting for the former administration and the investigations that have gone on. So I think it's very counterproductive to take those actions. It's more important, I think, to try to build trust, and that's what we're doing with the various people in our city, and making sure that they're heard. And I think that goes a long way to controlling and helping this process, is make sure people are heard.
Okay, moving on from that issue, I want to bring up the issue of crime now. Let me ask you this simply. Do you think Saratoga Springs has a crime problem now, especially in downtown Saratoga?
No, I think that what Saratoga Springs has is fallout from having lots of people come to our city. So for instance, last weekend, because for people at the SPAC concerts, there was about 70,000 people in our city. Bear in mind, we're a city of under 30,000. So we literally doubled our population over a weekend. There are always going to be issues that occur when you get that kind of number of people. So no, I don't think we have an out of control crime problem. I think our police do a great job. We also have, they're very experienced in crowd control. And so, but we do have some ancillary issues that arise when you have that kind of volume of people. We're about ready to go into the track season, and we're going to again have significant numbers here. We want to encourage people to come to enjoy this beautiful city, but we also want to make sure they understand that if they break the law, they may find themselves in trouble, as an individual did this weekend. I guess he vandalized some cars in the park. So we'll take action when we need to, but I don't think it's a very safe city. the amenities here for tourists, for residents alike is really unmatched.
Are there any particular plans you're looking at for the next few years to tamp down on the number of violent incidences? We did also have that Broadway shooting incident that involved an off-duty deputy from another state. So thinking of like big breaking news incidences like that, are there any targeted policies that you're thinking about doing, I guess?
Well, the city council has over the last month actually been considering an ordinance change to more heavily penalize individuals who are drinking and also carrying a firearm. And we had a long discussion about it last night. The city council didn't act, but they agreed as a city council to move that legislation forward in the next coming weeks. So that's one policy. We are going to continue to encourage the county to consider a 2 o'clock closing for our bars. We think that is a good, solid way to deal with some of the more exuberant, difficult crowd control issues. We haven't convinced them yet, but we're not going to give up hope. Unfortunately, that's still one of the only ways to change this. We have also talked to our legislators to see if there's a way that the state could step in there. We aren't the only city that has this issue of a county that is reluctant to change closing hours because they have various towns and municipalities within them. But we hope to make progress on those two issues. But again, these instances where a situation occurs that does create danger to our visitors is very rare and is very exceptional, given the numbers of people that come into the city, which, as I said, 70,000 in just when the track hasn't even started is when you consider the size of our city, it's really phenomenal.
Okay. Staying with my last question on this crime incident, you brought up, the working with the county. There seems to have been a bit of tension in the past few months between the city and the county, in particular with that Broadway shooting incident. The DA had advised the city not to release more details. What do you want voters to know about how you responded in providing the information to the media about that incident in particular? And is there anything that you would do differently in the beginning stages of that investigation when people were looking for information?
Well, what I want people to know is that my first reaction, which was to get out to the public the information that was necessary for them to make a learned decision about what had happened, is going to be always my first instinct. I have no regrets about stepping up and saying, we heard about this incident. I think I heard about it 9 o'clock in the morning on November 20th. We were in front of cameras by 12 o'clock noon, making sure that people understood what happened and, more importantly, what didn't happen. My wife was in Detroit that day for a business trip, and she called me and said, "I heard there was a gang shooting." So what I recognized was happening on social media when that incident occurred was that there were rumors all over the place that were totally incorrect, that could potentially have created more problems for our city. So getting out in front of that was absolutely imperative. And one of the things that I've never said, it hasn't been covered at least, was I asked the DA's office when they came in and said, "Don't go out there, define to me what the risk is here." And they never, ever, and my opponent also cannot put his finger on what negative impact us going out and telling people what we knew, and also assuring the public that people were safe. Remember, there hadn't been a discharge of a firearm for 26 years on in our city. So it was imperative that we got out there. And to this day, nobody has ever defined to me why it prejudiced the investigation. It somehow made it more difficult to make arrests, any of that. So I'm very proud of what we did there, and that will always be my instinct, is to make sure that the public knows, um, and so I wouldn't hesitate again to do what we did.
Okay. Is there a rift or a divide between the city and county leaders as things stand right now? And let me couch another question on top of that. How can you assure voters that those two entities can work together if you were reelected?
Well, we all have a responsibility to our constituents. We all want to make sure that Saratoga Springs, Saratoga County are places where people are heard, that it's also a place where we continue to build our economy, that we continue to make sure that our government is transparent. So I think there are some common goals that the county has with the city of Saratoga Springs. And so I look forward to working with them. One of the things you had asked about earlier about our homeless shelter, I am going to be discussing with the county leadership about that issue and how we might be able to share some of the costs. One of the ironies of Saratoga Springs is this is where our basically Saratoga County's homeless are. This is not, we take care of that population. We believe that the county ought to assist us in this. We don't want to do it alone. And so we're going to go to them and we're going to talk to them. And I'm optimistic that they will listen to us and we will be heard, because, as people have said for years since I've gotten here, Saratoga Springs puts on the show. Lots of other entities, towns, villages, hamlets around Saratoga County benefit from that show. And we want to continue to have that good relationship with them and move forward. And so I'm optimistic that particularly in the second term, we can work together on those issues.
What are the challenges you foresee in the next year or so for the city?
Well, I think we need to deal with cannabis and locate the business opportunities for people who are looking to offer that. We are I believe we're the only city in Saratoga County that has authorized all the phases of the cannabis business to be located here. We also need to deal with the Airbnb issue. As a tourist town who traditionally has had people come here and rented homes, we now need to focus on this and make sure that it is equitable for everyone. It's equitable for people who have traditionally rented, people who come to rent, and also to our hotel industry, which is very important. So it will be a tough issue to wrestle with, but I believe that we'll be able to, as a community, come forward with a proposal that basically people can accept and move forward. So those are two issues that I think, and then I'm going to continue to focus on the things that we've been doing, which is affordable housing, complete streets, and then we are being very aggressive about making sure that we implement climate policies that lessen carbon dioxide and help our address that issue for future generations. So those are going to be the issues I'll be focused on.
I want to ask you one more question while we have a little bit of time. The issue of migrants being bussed up from New York City to upstate communities, that's been a big issue for a lot of people here in upstate New York. What can you say the city's role would be if migrants were to be bussed into Saratoga Springs? What do you have a plan in terms of taking care of them, providing them with resources? Would they be welcomed? I want to get your perspective on that.
Well, I don't anticipate that that's going to happen any time in the near future. Saratoga County has declared an emergency, and now it's my understanding that New York City mayor has sued all those counties in federal district court for various constitutional and federal law claims to essentially loosen those emergencies. We're watching that litigation very closely. We do have some concerns about the declaration of the emergency. It's not clear that it doesn't interfere with constitutional right for an individual to contract in our free economy. So there are some real questions we have, but we're watching that litigation. We want to deal with immigrants in a compassionate way, just like when the Ukraine war broke out, Saratoga Springs opened their arms to various families to come here. We don't see any difference with what is happening now in countries like Venezuela and other South American countries where people are seeking refugee status. So we're watching it. We're hopeful that we can get some changes also in the work rules, because one of the things that I've spoken to business leaders here who are in the hospitality business, they could use workers that if they were to come here, we certainly have a need for them. So they would actually assist us to a great extent in terms of all the events we have here. So I'm hopeful that we can come to a compromise that allows us to utilize these immigrants as they come into our country. But we're basically waiting to see how the litigation pans out in the challenge that the New York City mayor has addressed to the counties that have declared an emergency, including Saratoga County. So we'll see how that goes.
Mayor Ron Kim, we've covered a lot of issues in a short amount of time, and we certainly appreciate your time. Election day, again, to remind our viewers, primary day, Tuesday, June 27th, early voting already underway. So thank you so much for your thoughts and your perspective on these issues. We wish you luck.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Thanks.